Hi, this is the Tropic Pianist Gamers podcast, episode 28, Getting Started with Your Habits in 2024. And today I welcome special guest Clare George, the Healthy Habits Coach. Clare, would you like to introduce yourself properly?
Hi everyone. My name's Clare George and I'm the Health Habits Coach. And I'm here. I'm just absolutely excited to be on the podcast. This is the first time I'm doing a video. So thanks so much, Jen. I'm really a little nervous, but excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Cool. So I have to ask, to get started, what is your background story to how you became the Health Habits Coach?
Oh, well, it's a long one, and this isn't a long podcast, right? So to but
Summarise it.
in a quick way, I'm basically I'm a 52-year-old mum of three. I've lived all around the world, 20 different house moves around the world, from Asia to Europe to North America. I've done 3 degrees, and 2 of them are in masters, and I've always been into volunteering. So that's kind of me in a nutshell in terms of where I've been, what I've been doing. But what got me into health particularly was back in 2011. I just finished my first masters in social development, and we were moving to New York City. Been there a couple of weeks up in Vermont, and get bitten by a tick, and I get chronic Lyme disease, which was for me extremely debilitating. And so yeah, I basically had no semblance of a regular life for about 3 years. And there was no medical support. It was just, we don't know what's wrong with you, at the best doctors in New York City. So as a consequence of going through that, obviously it was really, really tough, very challenging. I got into my habits, if you like, around what I was eating, around movement, around some of the classic things you'd think of in terms of health, and found a way through my complex health condition through my habits. So that got me into that, and then I got seriously into sort of fitness, and I had a bit of a journey with tennis, and then I ended up, when the pandemic hit, I was empty nested, Act Two, and wanted to really connect my social development with health. And so I did another master's in health psychology, which is all about the behavior change for health, whether that's, to prevent disease, or whether that's to improve your experience of your health condition in the day to day. And so I completed that last year, and then that led me to working in this gorgeous space that I do as a health coach. And I was fortunate enough to get 2 jobs, one at a local GP practice here in Shropshire in the UK, and in patient support. And that was a real wide range of any kind of social related issue or element that was having a negative impact on the patient's health. And then the other job I got was as a health coach for the NHS. It's called the Healthier You program. It's all about preventing type 2 diabetes. And I've now coached over 2,000 people in that program. And then sort of about a year ago, to the day almost, I set up a website and decided, no, I want to do my thing my way. And so I set up the Health Habits Coach. And and that's led me to this path, to meeting you, Jen, earlier this year, and to getting to enjoy my all the things that I do under this umbrella of being the Health Habits Coach.
So basically you were chasing your passions and you found your passion.
Well, exactly. I mean, one of the questions was about that you were wondering about was about the, what influenced me. And we even get to that kind of, it was like a bomb drop, really, the Lyme disease and the tick. But I was always into sort of geography, geology, human biology, and psychology as a teen. Actually, to be honest, when I was 9 years old, I had a map of the world and I wanted to go to be an explorer, to go to Greenland. I've never been to Greenland yet. A lot of places, but never there. But then my first boyfriend, when I was about 17, in Stafford, in England, he bought me this book and it was just like a regular paperback, but it was called Wayward Women, and it was all about famous or infamous women of history that had been sort of wanderers and wayward. And because back then in the 80s, that was still considered a very wayward thing to be a wanderer as a woman. And that's what really, I think, inspired me. Within that book was Karen Blixen, who's the author of Out of Africa, and the movie Out of Africa with Robert Redford, and the whole like travel and being this incredible woman. I mean, I've been to Isaac Dinneson's house in Copenhagen. Amazing inspiration to me. Yeah. So I think that really got me onto that. And then, well, that's probably what led me to being the person that solo traveled to Egypt when I was 19, right, only just after the Gulf War. And things like buying a one-way ticket to Beijing when I was 22, and off. And I've been all over the world as a solo traveler. So I think that was a big influence on me.
Wow. Traveling the world, yeah, that was like the opposite to me because I was too scared to travel anywhere. So you've explored the world when I've hidden away. That's quite an interesting contrast. So who do you help now?
So now I'm in this space of I've stopped working at my work at the GP practice because I really wanted to focus on behavior change and action based, and that was more of a sort of talking support role, and so now I'm really I have a mixture of the consultancy work that I do delivering. I'm still delivering the NHS Healthier You program. And but I'm now so busy with different elements of the health habits coach. I have, a weekly podcast. I have, well, a bi-weekly podcast, and sort of a blog and a newsletter and things like that. But I also am really involved in forming a business, in developing a business. And it, as you know, it's a lot of work. Goes into those early year or two of setting up. So whether it's the website, whether it's the tech stuff, or whether it's sort of working out my identity in this space as a health coach, there's a lot of people doing a lot of different things in this. So yeah, I think a lot of my time has gone on developing myself, whether it's online, on social platforms, and how to feel like when I look at a social post I put up, feel like, oh yeah, that's me, as opposed to that's somebody else's version of what to do, So I think that's taken up a lot of time. And then as a side shoot, I mentioned meeting yourself at one of the festivals I did this year. I set myself a little thing of doing the Summer of Wellness tour, which all about visiting lots of festivals and just being like a stall holder or a speaker, hosting workshops at different wellness festivals around the UK. And I like a rock concert going on tour. That's what I imagined it to be like, and it was exactly like that. It was fantastic.
Amazing.
Met yourself at Manifest, and so that led to a lot of brand development, and got me into, now I have an events company that I've set up. It's early days, but we had our first wellness fair a few weeks ago. I've got different retreats and fairs and events lined up for 2024. So it's busy.
I'd love to tap into that myself. I'll be in touch. I expect my goal for 2024 is to investigate the public speaking circuit. So that sounds right up my street. Anyway, have you got any tips for listeners who might want to get started on their journey with their health habits?
Yeah, now this is something that is really important, and that's because when we make an effort towards something, we need to feel at least like it was worth it, because otherwise the brain won't do it again. It'll try and avoid it. It'll go, oh, that was hard work and annoying. It didn't give me any product, So what I coach in my groups and in my programs is about always begin by knowing your starting point. Where are you right now? So if you have an intention towards getting fitter, how fit, how active, how much do you sit? What does your typical day, your typical week look like? Because what I find in my coaching is many people focus on the extremes of their experience, and they kind of don't realize that it's actually the boring bits and pieces that make up the general in between that is really going to impact them starting that habit. So know your start. How am I going to do that? Evaluation. You're going to really ask questions in a structured way, ideally, to really understand, as I say, how do I eat? What am I what's my movement like? What are my sleep habits like? Have I ever paid attention to how much I drink? Have I thought about my levels of stress in different situations or different days of the week? So asking yourself some pretty broad questions like that will help you really have a sense of your health landscape. Then once you've got a sense of that, I really recommend you spending a bit of time on understanding the impact of purpose. You mentioned earlier about passion and purpose. It clearly comes through with me. But when it comes to purpose, I do have a purpose statement, and it's based on love, growth, and compassion. Love as in love what you do what you love, enjoy it, find joy in your everyday stuff. And then growth, growth is, oh my gosh, development is all. The more we can grow, the more we feel so alive as a human being. And then compassion, well, for me, that's all about, the reason that's in my purpose statement is because it's all about contribution and being compassionate towards myself in self-care and understanding any journey is hard, but also compassion for others and finding a way to leave an impact, to make a contribution and being service to others. So develop your purpose. What is your why? Now, most of us get a bit lost on that. Say, oh, what's your passion? I don't have any. So what I really recommend is, how are you going to work out? Well, reflection. And often it's good to go back for this one. Reflect back on your childhood. Reflect back on, who were your friends? What did you do? What did you do when no one was looking? Stuff like that can really lead you into who your inner person and persona and spirit is all connected to. So that's what I'd really recommend with that. And then finally, perhaps the most important though, is get into action. Because without action, it just remains as a thought, as an idea, as an intention. And that's not to downplay those, because they're brilliant. But, first is the worst. Get it over with. Recognize there's going to be fear there. It's okay. You had your first kiss. You probably were terrified before you had your first kiss. But by the 10th, 100th, you kind of got pretty good at it, and hopefully still enjoying it to this day. Get over that first by reframing it as a sense of adventure. This is a journey. This is adventure I'm going on. It's not something that's testing me to see if I'll fall, and just keep going with it. So those are the three core ways I'd always recommend to start.
Oh, that's a great start. Yeah. So basically, with goal setting, I learned you have to have actionable steps, and it's taking the action that matters. So that echoes that perfectly. So you mentioned before you have your own podcast, and it's weekly, but that means you must have had quite a lot of episodes already down. Do you have a most memorable guest or episode that you've produced so far?
I do. I mean, to be honest, they're all so memorable. They really, really are. I'm sure you can agree.
Yes.
How impactful it is doing a podcast, and how much it changes you in ways you just didn't imagine. But one that does really stand out is, I was fortunate enough to, my bestest friend really in the world from the 90s, Rachel. And she's also Rachel Hatton, and she's also the author of a book, The Legacy of One Left Behind. And she came onto my podcast for Thanksgiving special. She's American. We met in New York City in the 90s. And she got me onto a job onto Wall Street, onto the 105th floor of the World Trade Center. And her book and a part of our story, it really is like a movie. It really is like that Beaches movie with Bette Midler, where, I was sort of uptight, formal British young woman, and she was this sassy American on Wall Street woman killing it, right? So it was just it's a brilliant story of friendship that we have, but it also has some massively impactful, events that really changed our friendship, brought us closer together, and tested the ways in which one human can show up for another. So we got into that on the episode about 9/11, about how it affected our friendship, you know, as we both worked on you know, on the 105th floor of the World Trade at that time. And I actually saw the second plane hit with my own sight. I was in New York City. I'd flown in the night before, and Rachel was flying. We were meant to be meeting at 11 o'clock in the morning on 9/11 on the 105th floor. And so, yeah, she ended up getting diverted to a Red Cross camp in Nova Scotia. And so that's just one story. To be honest, we have multiple, but obviously that is huge. And so to get into a podcast episode with somebody I know, trust, and love so dearly, but also has this amazing contribution towards helping others when they feel that their landscape is in tatters.
Yeah.
Cover and find a way to reset and find a way to put the pieces of life back together and move forwards. It was really moving for me.
Yeah, 9/11's always going to be a poignant date to talk about. There's so many stories of various extremes. I did a lot of research into that, but I was only 13 or 14 at the time, so I just remember it as a kid in the library, just watching it all unfold. But the memory never goes away what you were doing at that point in the day either, even if you weren't local to the site. But yeah, fascinating. So, where can we find you if we'd actually like to work with you?
Right. So, well, as I said, I think I mentioned that I do produce, you know, 3 core sort of pillars of free weekly, you know, sort of contributions for my community. And I'm always welcoming anyone and everyone, because with somebody with my background, it is about making health and health habits available and accessible for anyone. And so I have a weekly blog, a weekly newsletter, which you can subscribe to, called The Weekly Habit, and my podcast, The Health Habits Coach, which is, you know, Apple, Spotify, you know, the usual platforms. Yeah. And then my website, where you can find all of this and connect to any of those items, is www.thehealthhabitscoach.com. And so please do come along and say hi. It's a lot of fun doing what we do, isn't it, Jen?
Yes, love it. I need to tap into your stuff a bit more. I've been observing you since Womanly Fest, but I haven't had time to look into it properly, so maybe now's the time. Okay, so thank you for being a guest today. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation. I know I have.
Oh no, Jen, thanks so much. You know, first is the worst, but this was the best. You know, coming on and doing podcasts. Sorry for anybody watching. My eyes are a bit. I'm only used to being able to have to talk to the microphone. So thanks a lot for getting me over that first. And who knows, maybe 2024 will bring more forays into the video space as well. Thanks so much.
Amazing. Thank you.